Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to change it up a little bit. So today, we are not having a guest speaker come on. I am just going to go live. We are going to be speaking, just you and I. We're just going to be talking. And I wanted to share the origin story of how it all began and what it looked like for me. Obviously, as you know, I am a specialist parents coach. I help mums predominantly, but I'm helping dads as well manage their mindset after they've received an autism diagnosis. Now, I see a range of people. Some people I speak to, we're expecting the diagnosis and just want to manage that top 5% of their mindset and just make sure that they're getting what they need. But a majority of people that I speak to are just crushed by the diagnosis. They are devastated, they are overwhelmed, and they really don't know how to move forward with it. It wasn't something on their list of things that they were hoping for. And now they've got to rework their future, because their future plan rather around what it's going to look like. So today I want to take you back, all the way back to the beginning of how it looked. So where do I start? My angel boy, he was just such a happy baby, right? He was the sunshine out, like just everything to me. But, if I look back, there were things that I couldn't explain that were there that hindsight, I look back and go, okay, there's definitely things that are coming up that I see that were that would have definitely given an autism diagnosis. But at the time, I didn't even know what autism was. I had never worked in disability. I didn't know anything about autism. I didn't know anyone who was autistic. And some of the things that my angel boy would do when he was younger was he was a very, very light sleeper when he was a baby, right? So I had postnatal anxiety after he was born, which was horrific, and I would not wish it on my worst enemy. But I got to the point where I would heat up the water for my cup of tea in a saucepan because I was too afraid to turn on the kettle because I thought it would wake him up. And that anxiety was debilitating. Like I felt like I couldn't even leave the house. And I think that really knocked me for six in terms of trying to be able to manage a newborn as well as managing what was going on for me. And one of the things that I look back now, and I'll get to some of the things that my angel boy was doing, but one of the things that I really struggled with was I always wanted to be a mum. Always, even when I was young, I always wanted to be a mum. And now that I was one, I needed to be the perfect mum. Throw perfection in the bin. It does not need to come. It is a word that it's not attainable, because your idea of perfection is so different to my idea of perfection. So then who's winning? No one's winning. What does a perfect mum look like, right? For the child where the mum works 24/7, having her at home and being present for an hour is the perfect mum, right? Sometimes the perfect mum is the one that does everything and goes everywhere and takes to the sporting events and makes the good food. And do you know what I mean? Like, we've got this ideology that a perfect mum does it all. But I can tell you right now, Lord, give me strength. It is hard to do it all, right? It is hard to do it all, especially when you're sleep deprived. It's almost impossible. So some of the things that my angel boy was doing when he was younger, like I said, he was a really light sleeper. He just didn't want to sleep by himself, right? He always wanted us to be around and really struggled to go to sleep. So as he progressed and as he got older, by the time we were in kindergarten, this child would not go to sleep until 10 o'clock at night because he just couldn't switch off. He couldn't quieten his brain. He couldn't get his body to calm down. And that was hard because I'm the kind of girl that wants to be in bed by like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I want to be asleep. And here I am like laying next to my child who's still fully stimming and isn't able to switch off. And that, it was exhausting for him, but it was exhausting for us as well. One of the other things that he would do was he would gag a lot. So he would eat and he would choke on his food. And oh my goodness, I can't tell you the horror stories that I would tell myself that he was going to die because he was choking on some food. But little did I know that it was just so much sensory information going on in his mouth. Didn't know what that meant. Didn't know that that was even a thing. What do you mean? You put the food in your mouth, you eat, you chew, you swallow. Like, that's how it goes. Again, when I say that my ignorance was 10 out of 10, I literally didn't have any idea. I didn't know what these things were. So they were probably the two biggest things that I could go back to and see what that looked like, and was like, okay. And so we, as the time progressed, like obviously he was tiptoeing. There was lots of stimming like this. He's a very big visual stimmer. And I remember going to the health nurse, and of course, bless her soul, she picked it up straight away. And she was like, oh, I think you need to go to the pediatrician just to sort of see what's going on. Of course, she knew what was happening and what was going on. I had no idea, right? So I was heavily pregnant at this point in time with my daughter. And she's like, I think you need to go see the pediatrician just for like a checkup. And of course, obviously, as a maternal health nurse, she couldn't diagnose my angel boy with autism. So she needed to send him to a pediatrician. Welcome, ladies. And so welcome, Carmen. I wanted to, so we fast forward. Now my daughter is a newborn. She's 6 weeks old. And my husband was out, he was interstate. And I needed to go to the appointment, but I'm of the thought, not the thought, I'm of the ideology that I'd rather take my mum, who has been my rock this whole entire time, just as another pair of ears. Sometimes, I feel like I was distracted by my son. I was distracted by my daughter. You can't always take in the information. So I brought her along as a set of ears. So at this point, my daughter's 6 weeks old and my angel boy is he was just about to turn 2. And so the pediatrician has come in, beg your pardon, rewind. We're in the office and he's playing with his trains on the floor. And I was thinking to myself, am I going to walk through those doors and my life's going to change? And it was almost like someone was just quietly whispering in my ear what was going to happen. So they were just almost like they were preparing me for what was to come. And so, excuse me, we walked through the doors and she did all of her respective tests. And I often say to her friends, like, the pediatrician sat down and she wanted to play, tea party. And I was thinking, can't play tea party. He doesn't want to play tea party. He wants to play with trains. Like, why aren't we playing with trains? Something that he's actually interested in. But of course, we walked through the doors and he had no eye contact. He didn't even notice that she was there. He was so busy looking at the wheels of the train go round, all those very, very typical autistic signs. And so what happened was she did all the respective tests and she sat me down and she said, I'm sorry, your son has autism. Good luck getting him out of that world. What? What do you mean he's autistic? I couldn't comprehend what she had just said. His life trajectory had just changed instantly. His future and my future had completely and utterly changed. And I didn't know how to handle that information. I didn't know how to process that information. So I went home and I grieved for him. I grieved for the child that I thought I was going to have, the child that was going to grow up and be these things. As parents, when our son kicks a ball, oh, he's going to be a soccer player. I can see, I can tell, right? Or your daughter picks up a play scalpel. She's going to be a doctor. I'm watch it. I know, right? We have these ideas of what we think our children are going to do and be and have and become. And when you get a diagnosis like autism, suddenly that just vanishes. Now, if I take you back, here was an almost 2-year-old autistic boy, non-speaking, right? He wasn't toilet trained. He had so many things that he had to overcome. And I just didn't know what his future was going to look like. And I wasn't given the tools or the strategies on how to manage that. So I left that pediatrician's office with a stack of information for him, right? Which I am so utterly grateful for, but there was nothing for me. Now, as we know, mums, not always, but are generally the primary caregiver when it comes to dealing with an autistic child, right? Dad's usually out off working and mum's usually at home going to all the therapy appointments. My mindset was so overwhelmed, burnt out. My nervous system was on fire. How on earth was I going to be able to help, support, and advocate for this child when I was barely doing that for myself? I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how to show up for him. I don't understand the terms that you're talking about. What does neurodivergent mean? What does neurotypical mean? What is an OT? What's a speechy? What's a psych? I don't understand all the terms that you're throwing at me, expecting me to know. And so how do you then go home and Google autism? Because I can tell you right now, it's only going to go give you a very small search with having a child diagnosed with autism, which is why I started the podcast, is to give you really specific strategies for things that come up with autism, right? So that you can punch in those keywords and find the right strategy for your child. It's so hard to know where to look or which direction to go in if you are in a pitch black environment with literally a torch trying to find a needle in a haystack. Impossible. And it feels impossible. And so, during my grieving, I felt like I had PTSD, undiagnosed, but that's what it felt like. I would go to sleep and I would wake up in the middle of the night, saturated, like my pajamas, the sheets were wet. And I would wake up because I'd be crying, right? I'd cry because I didn't know what his future held. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know what if he never talks? What if he never says, I love you? What if he never has friends? What if he can't find a job or get married? What happens when I die? Who's going to look after him then? And these thoughts would ruminate in my brain. I can't tell you. And it got to the point where I was in the shower one day and I remember the thoughts just coming in. He's never going to be better. He's never going to talk. He's never going to be doing the things that you imagined him to be. And this constant rolling of what was happening in my brain. And I remember being in the shower and like literally covering my ears and be like, shut up, stop talking. I can't hear these thoughts anymore because they were impacting every part of my body and every part of what was happening. And that's what it got to. It's intense when you are in a position where you have no support. And it makes me sad. I wish I could go back to that person that I was before and give her a big cuddle. I wish I could go back to her and say, it's going to be okay, but you need to look after you first so that you can look after him, so that you can look after your daughter, so that you can still remain married, right? It's not smooth sailing. But as parents, the first thing that comes into our minds when we get an autism diagnosis is, okay, all resources must go to the child, right? Everything needs to go to the child. And yes, I do agree that a lot of resources need to go to the child. But my goodness, some resources need to come to us as well. You can't survive in burnout, right? It's impossible. You will end up, I was thinking about this the other day. When we are stressed out of our minds, like I was, our immune system goes into that massive fight or flight. or freezing sometimes, and your immune system naturally goes down. And then you just get hit with illness. And I remember it happened, right? I had been stressing over my son's diagnosis. My parents had gone overseas, and I had contracted, what was it called? Influenza. And I remember calling my girlfriend, crying on the phone, saying to her, I think I'm dying. Like, I don't know that I've ever felt like this before. And I could just hear how helpless she felt, and that how she felt like she didn't know how to help me. Little did she know at that point what was brewing underneath, right? What was happening. Because one thing I wanted to share with you is that for 4 long years, 4 long years, I never told anybody about my son's diagnosis. I hid in shame, I hid in blame, I hid in guilt, because I honestly thought that someone was going to turn around and say to me, it's your fault that he is autistic. You ate something, you drank something, you did something, you sat too close to the computer. It was my fault. And at one point, I remember being on my knees, tears, snot, everything. I'm begging. And I said to God, I said, please, God, universe, whoever is out there, please, 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 please send me your biggest, strongest man so that he can come and beat the absolute crap out of me so that the outside matches the inside and I don't have to lie anymore. That I don't have to be and pretend and mask and act like everything's okay when it's not. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I would be in the car with my husband because we would have a very rare date night with friends. And I would be driving in the car and I'd just burst into tears, right? Dressed up, makeup's done, hair's done, crying my eyes out, worrying, didn't know what was going to happen. And I'd have to like make sure I always had makeup to like cover up where the tears had taken away my foundation. And then I'd get out of that car and I'd act like everything's all good. We're here to party. It's great. We're going to have the best time. And then I'd go home and I'd cry some more because no one knew the heaviness that I was carrying. And it wasn't until I ran into a random stranger, random mum at the park. And we were talking and I said, yeah, my son's autistic. You're never going to guess what happened. Oh, I felt like I was carrying 30 kilos of rocks on my back. And when I said that sentence, I let go of that sack. I felt like I could breathe. I felt like for the first time in 4 years, I could actually speak the truth and not pretend that he was typical, and not pretend and hide behind the fact that he was just like a slow learner. That, you know, yeah, his words are coming soon. And I just had to stand in my truth. And I had to show that, yes, he is autistic. He's not broken. He's not different and odd and weird. He's beautiful. And he has so much to offer this world. And it's going to take him a little bit more time to catch up, but he will catch up because now, through the grace of coaching, I am his fiercest advocate. I'm the person there making sure that we are ticking all the boxes because I'm making sure that I'm taking care of this. This is just as important as my cardio, as my weights. It's just as important as everything else that's going on. If we don't take care of this, good luck. Good luck trying to find the way to motivate yourself to do the exercise, to do the clean cooking, to make sure that you're, reducing the total load on this child, right? There is so much to it. And I don't think parents understand that it starts here first. It starts with you first. It doesn't start with the child first. You need to make sure that you're looking after you so that you can advocate. Because I can tell you there were times where I'd be like, well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, so I'm just going to pour myself a bottle of wine, right? numb that pain, push it all the way down, make sure that I don't have to feel it. Because I saw that woman looked at him, in a weird way because he was vocally stimming, or, someone else made a comment because he was flapping his hands, or he was touching something, or, whatever it was. I just couldn't handle all of the comments, right? I couldn't deal with it. So that's why I poured the wine, right? To numb the feelings, because it's so easy to do, right? How easy it is to grab a bottle of red wine and pour yourself a glass. And I did that for a really, really long time. And it wasn't until I went through coaching that I could see why I was doing the things that I was doing, and unpacked the reasons behind why I was drinking. And so coming up 3 years now in January, I don't drink. Now, I wouldn't say that I was an alcoholic, but I definitely like to drink, right? I used to love being able to just socially drink, and it was more than one or two, right? Just to really not have to think about it. And I think at the end of the day, not drinking, don't get me wrong, I don't want to act like I've got it all together, because there are definitely times where something will happen and I'm like, oh, I could really go for a drink right now. And I look at, okay, why? For what reason do I want to go for that drink? For what reason am I feeling like I need this in order to just manage? And when I find the reason, I'm like, okay, it's because of this, right? Once I really unpack it, I can see why I did the things that I did. And so instead of getting the bottle of red, I'll make myself that, the soda stream, and I'll have a glass of sparkling water. And it does the trick every time, right? The bubbles, it just makes you feel good. Well, it makes me feel good anyway, because I don't drink soft drinks. So understanding and having awareness is going to be imperative for parents to understand why they're doing the things that they're doing. And they do it so subconsciously sometimes, but our little beautiful children, right? They're so intuitive. If you look at autistic children, right? Speaking, non-speaking, they're intuitive beings. They will pick up faster than you if you are dysregulated, and then in turn, they become dysregulated. So I got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to figure out why I'm dysregulated. And when I'm dysregulated, what am I putting in place in order to feel better, right? How do I do this? There has to be a plan in place, right? For me, my go-to place is having a really, really, and I mean like scalding hot bath. I need to be in there and just be. And you know what? Look, I'm going to be honest. I don't know when it's supposed to stop or start or whatnot, but the kids, they want to come in too, right? And there were boundaries where I was like, I literally can't have you in here right now, or give me 10 more minutes and then you can come in, or, I'll run you a separate bath. Or there was always a strategy, but the water for me was what helped me reset. And to this day, if I'm feeling stressed, my husband knows if that bath is going on, right, it's on. Right, he knows, okay, I've got to make sure I'm looking after the kids. I can see that Nat's not really doing well, and we need to make sure that her mindset's on point, right? So he'll put the movie on, he makes the popcorn, he does all the things to really support him. And for that, I'm eternally grateful, right? Because he's really picked up on my cues as I picked up on his cues. And that's why I think that's one of the biggest things, and that is a talk for another day, around managing relationships, managing what it looks like to have a really successful, healthy relationship in a marriage when you have a child who has a diagnosis. It's hard. It's brutal. You don't get that time off. You don't get to do like the date nights and the love nights. And by the time you get to bed, there's no intimacy. We're going to bed. Like, I'm exhausted. What are you talking about? There's no time for anything else, because I actually need to sleep and I can barely keep my eyes open. So being able to step out of that really fight or flight and being able to really stand in, this is what it looks like for me to be regulated, is so important. And I love regulation, because it's not just for neurodivergent people, it is for everybody, right? Granted, neurodivergent people get dysregulated way more, but I think it's something that practice that we need to put in place. And it's not necessarily so much as like self-care, although that sounds very trendy right now. It's not a nice to have. If I don't have a bath, I'm going to lose my mind, right? Like, this is where we're at now. So it's important for you guys to understand what that looks like and what you want to do in order to show up for you. So, you know, I wanted to go through that journey with you because so many people have reached out and been like, what happened in the beginning? Like, how did it unfold for you? What did it look like? And one of the things that I wish I could go back and say that I wish that I had coaching. And I'm not saying that as a coach. Go to whoever you want. There are plenty of coaches out in this world, right? But go to someone who has lived experience. That is enormous for me. Having speaking to someone who has lived experience is mind-blowing, because I can't tell you the amount of times that I went to go see psychs. Until you've walked this journey, you don't really know what it feels like. I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I don't know if he's going to choke. I don't know if he's going to run away onto a road. I don't know what's going to happen. And so you're constantly in that fight or flight mode, and you don't know how to get out of that. And that's difficult, right? So having someone who has had lived experience is profound, because then you're in company with people who get it. You're in company with people that look at you and go, yeah, me too. I know what that feels like. And I know how hard that can be. And it sucks. It's hard. It's brutal, but it gets better. It gets better because we learn better strategies for them. They learn better strategies for themselves, right? As they grow, they learn, okay, well, what's going to regulate me? Not always, but that's been my experience with my son and with some of the clients that I have seen, and even with some of my friends. As the child has grown older, they have become more aware around their externals and their environment, so that they can choose what makes them feel better. So I think that's what inspired me to make and create You Are Seen, right? To be able to share that you're not alone, right? You don't have to walk this journey alone like I did, because I did walk it alone in that shame and blame, and it got me nowhere, right? It didn't move the needle. I didn't get the help that I needed. And so I stayed in this pond of, I don't know what I'm doing. I am just surviving. And that's a place that I never, ever want to revisit, because that place is dark. That place is scary. And there doesn't seem to be any light at the end of the tunnel. But I want you to know that You Are Seen is a bright beacon of hope. That yes, things can look so different if you have a different mentality, if you look at things differently. And it's not always about like the glass is half full, the glass is half empty. It's so much more than that. Deep diving into why we do the things that we do as a human. Why do we do the things that we do, right? Why is it so important that we get our coffee first thing? Why is it so important that we go to the gym? Why is it so important that we, fold the clothes in a certain way? Why do we do the things that we do? Is it because it makes us happy? Is it because we go to the drinking of the wine because it helps us stuff down those feelings and pretend that we're not actually having to deal with it? There's so much more to it than we are led to believe. And this is why I am such a big advocate for mums in particular to be like, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to pretend like everything's okay when it's not. And it's okay. Goodness me, it's okay to cry. Crying is one of the most cathartic things that you can do, right? But it's brutal sometimes. And sometimes when you see the mums of the typical kids drinking their coffee in the park, and like the kids are just playing, and you're running, trying to make sure that your child stays alive and that they don't run onto the road. It doesn't seem very fair. It feels really hard. But being able to talk through those strategies are the thing that will move the needle, right? So that you can show up for your child, so that you can advocate for them. Because when this is working properly, my goodness, it changes the trajectory of how you show up. So I hope that I've answered a lot of the questions about the origin story. If you've got any questions in particular about my journey, about if you have something that you want to know, please just DM me. I'm always here to chat. It can feel very lonely and very isolating at times, and it doesn't need to be like that. I've got a free download that you can go to my website, that's called Your Child is Diagnosed with Autism. Now what? Right? Now what do we do? I don't know what to do. I wish I had this freebie when when my son was diagnosed. But I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know that this journey wasn't meant to be walked alone. Not in any way of a shadow of doubt that it was meant to be walked alone. You are supposed to be surrounded by community. You are supposed to be with people who understand who you are, why you're doing the things that you're doing. And sometimes you just need to lean on somebody just to get a breather, just to be able to refill your cup again so that you know what's happening. So I hope, like I said, I hope that's answered your questions. You can book in for a free 30-minute chat with me to discuss if we're a good fit. If you feel that we're compatible to be able to go for coaching. I'm not going to be offended if you want to go to another coach. I'm always going to tell you, do what's right for you. Make sure that you're getting your cup full, because in a situation where your child is newly diagnosed, it feels like the impossible. It feels like you cannot climb the mountain. And I don't want that for you. So go onto my website, www.youareseen.com.au. Otherwise, Facebook, I'm at youareseen. And then on Instagram, I'm under you_r_seen. Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the comments. Hi, Carmen. How you going? Aussie Autism family, welcome. Brooke, welcome. What does it say? My daughter has a condition named Williams syndrome and autism. Yep, definitely. And it's hard. It's not easy, right? And I feel like we need to get better at supporting us so that we can support them. All right. It starts here first. I hope that you found this podcast helpful. Like I said, if you've got any questions, please reach out and I will talk to you soon. See you later, guys. See you next week. Bye.